Dr. Maya Patel adjusted her greenhouse apron and smiled at the visiting Galactic Council delegation. The smile was genuine, warm, and apparently completely ineffective at earning her any respect whatsoever. "This is your military specialist?" Ambassador Zexthara's tentacles twitched with what could charitably be called amusement. The Vortanian's translator crackled as she addressed Captain Rodriguez. "She tends flowers." "Dr. Patel is our xenobiology expert," Rodriguez replied diplomatically. "She specializes in cross-species biological compatibility and—" "She waters plants," interrupted Commander Vex Kai, his scaled hide rippling with barely contained laughter. "How delightfully human. No wonder your species insists on these absurd peace protocols." Maya continued smiling while carefully misting a particularly aggressive-looking vine. The plant seemed to purr under her attention, which was both adorable and slightly disturbing if you really thought about it. Which none of the aliens were doing, because they were too busy being condescending. "The Korthak delegation arrives tomorrow," Zexthara announced, her tone suggesting she was discussing a particularly unpleasant medical procedure. "They respect only strength. They view diplomacy as weakness. Your human methods will not work with them." "Perhaps we should let the professionals handle this," Vex Kai suggested, his chest swelling with pride. "My people have dealt with the Korthak before. They understand the language of force." Maya nodded pleasantly and continued her work. The truth was, she'd been studying Korthak biology for 3 years. Their muscle density, their neural pathways, their digestive systems, their reproductive cycles. She knew more about Korthak physiology than most Korthak knew about themselves. But apparently, tending to her botanical laboratory made her harmlessly nurturing. The galactic community had decided, after humanity's first contact protocols emphasized peace and understanding, that humans were simply too soft for real conflict. Too empathetic. Too gentle. The fact that Earth had somehow managed to become the dominant species on a planet where everything was actively trying to kill everything else seemed to escape their notice. "Dr. Patel will remain in the botanical section during negotiations," Rodriguez announced. "We wouldn't want to overwhelm her with the complexities of interspecies warfare." Maya's smile never wavered. "Of course, Captain. I'll just be here with my plants." As the delegation filed out discussing strategy in the confident tones of people who'd never actually won a war, Maya turned back to her work. She had 47 different specimens from hostile worlds, each one carefully cultivated and modified for specific purposes. Her favorite was a lovely little thing from the Andromeda sector that produced the most fascinating alkaloids. She hummed softly while she worked, a gentle melody that seemed to calm the more aggressive specimens. The aliens thought she was too gentle for war. They were right, in a way. She was far too gentle for the crude, messy business of conventional warfare. She preferred something more elegant. Warlord Grimjaw lived up to his name in every possible way. 8 feet of muscle and bone, with tusks that could puncture battle armor, and a voice that could shatter glass. His son, Prince Snarl, was smaller but made up for it with an attitude that suggested he'd been raised by particularly aggressive wasps. "You will surrender your medical supplies," Grimjaw announced without preamble. "Consider it tribute for safe passage through Korthak space." Captain Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Warlord Grimjaw, we were under the impression this was a trade negotiation. We have goods to exchange, not tribute to." The warlord's laugh was like an avalanche having a nervous breakdown. "Trade? You think we trade with prey species? You will give us what we want, or we will take it from your wreckage." Ambassador Zexthara's tentacles went rigid. Commander Vex Kai's scales shifted from green to a decidedly less confident yellow. The other diplomatic personnel began calculating the distance to the escape pods. Prince Snarl stepped forward, his juvenile tusks gleaming. "Father, look at them. They're already trembling. Weak species always fold at the first sign of strength." "1 hour," Grimjaw growled. "You have 1 hour to transfer the supplies to our ship. After that, we demonstrate why the Korthak Empire rules 17 systems." The diplomats began talking all at once, their voices overlapping in a symphony of panic. Rodriguez tried to maintain order, but you could see the defeat in his shoulders. The Korthak ship was 3 times their size, armed with weapons that could vaporize small moons. Maya watched from the botanical section's viewing window, her hands steady as she transplanted a particularly delicate specimen. The Korthak delegation was impressive, she had to admit. All that muscle and fury and barely contained violence. They were predators, apex hunters who'd conquered their way across the galaxy. They were also, she noted with professional interest, breathing the ship's recycled atmosphere. Their skin was absorbing trace particles from the environmental systems. Their digestive systems were processing the complementary refreshments that diplomatic protocol required. Dr. Patel, Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. Please remain in your section. The situation is complicated. Of course, Captain, Maya replied, her voice as calm as a meditation recording. I'll be here if you need me. She turned back to her work, humming that same gentle melody. The plant before her was responding beautifully to her modifications. Its spores were particularly reactive to mammalian respiratory systems, especially those with the specific protein markers she'd identified in Korthak biology. The Warlord was right about one thing. The weak always folded at the first sign of strength. But Maya had learned something important during her years studying Earth's ecosystem. Sometimes the most dangerous predators looked like prey. While the diplomatic staff frantically debated surrender strategies, Maya walked calmly through the ship's corridors carrying a small potted plant. It was a lovely specimen, with delicate purple flowers and leaves that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. The Korthak guards at the docking bay burst into laughter when they saw her approaching. 2 of them, each roughly the size of a small building, found the sight of a tiny human female with a flower pot absolutely hilarious. What is this? One of them rumbled, his voice like gravel in a blender. A peace offering? Are you here to surrender personally, little flower keeper? Maya smiled sweetly. I'd like to speak with Prince Snarl, if that's possible. I have something that might interest him. The guards exchanged glances, which was quite a feat considering their eyes were on opposite sides of their heads. You want to speak with the prince? What could you possibly offer that would interest Korthak royalty? Oh, just a small gift, Maya replied, adjusting the plant in her arms. Something from my collection. A friendship token, if you will. The laughter was even louder this time. One guard actually had to lean against the wall to support himself. Friendship token. Oh, the humans are even more pathetic than we thought. They escorted her into the Korthak ship, which was exactly as subtle as you'd expect from a species that conquered planets for fun. Everything was black metal and sharp edges, with decorative skulls that may or may not have been decorative. The air smelled like a gym locker that had been used as a mausoleum. Prince Snarl was lounging on what appeared to be a throne made from the bones of his enemies, or possibly just really committed interior decorating. He looked up as Maya entered, his expression cycling through confusion, amusement, and something that might have been genuine curiosity. What is this? He asked, his voice a younger version of his father's avalanche impression. Your Highness, Maya said, executing a perfect bow. I'm Dr. Maya Patel, xenobiology specialist. I've brought you a gift from my botanical collection. She presented the plant with the same reverence someone might show a holy relic. The prince leaned forward, his tusks catching the harsh lighting. A plant? He said slowly. You've brought me a plant? Not just any plant, Maya explained, her voice taking on the gentle, educational tone she used with particularly slow students. This is a Terran hybrid I've been developing. Very rare. Very special. The flowers produce the most wonderful fragrance when they bloom. Prince Snarl looked at the plant, then at Maya, then back at the plant. His expression suggested he was trying to process information his brain simply wasn't equipped to handle. You brought me a flower, he said finally, as a tribute. A flower. A friendship token, Maya corrected gently. And it's about to bloom. The plant bloomed with the enthusiasm of a fireworks display. The purple flowers opened in perfect synchronization, releasing a cloud of glittering spores that danced in the air like fairy dust. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and absolutely devastating to Korthak biology. Prince Snarl inhaled reflexively, which was exactly what Maya had been counting on. The spores were designed to target the specific neural pathways that Korthak used for pain processing. Within seconds, every nerve ending in his body was sending signals that translated roughly to everything is on fire and also made of acid. The prince's scream was a work of art. It started low, built to a crescendo that shattered 3 light fixtures, and then sustained at a pitch that made the ship's hull vibrate. His guards rushed forward, but Maya held up a gentle hand. "Oh, please don't worry," she said in the same sweet voice she'd used to present the gift. "It's not fatal, just incredibly, exquisitely painful." Prince Snarl writhed on his bone throne, his massive frame convulsing as the spores worked their way through his system. The pain was calibrated to be just below the threshold that would cause unconsciousness, ensuring he'd remain awake for the full experience. "The spores bind to Korthak neural receptors," Maya explained conversationally, as if she were discussing the weather. "They'll continue reproducing in his system, intensifying the sensation every few minutes. Really fascinating adaptation, actually. I based it on a plant from the Rigel system that uses similar compounds to paralyze prey." The guards were shouting now, their weapons trained on Maya, but she maintained her calm demeanor. "Oh, shooting me won't help. The spores are self-replicating. They'll continue their work regardless of what happens to me." Warlord Grimjaw burst into the chamber, his face a mask of rage that could have melted steel. "What have you done to my son?" "I've given him a gift," Maya replied simply. "A very special gift that will keep giving for approximately 6 hours. Unless, of course, I administer the antidote." Prince Snarl's screams reached a new octave. Several more light fixtures surrendered to the assault. "The antidote?" Grimjaw's voice was dangerously quiet. Maya reached into her apron and produced a small vial of clear liquid. "Oh yes, I always prepare countermeasures. It's basic safety protocol when working with biological agents. I could administer it right now, if you'd like." The Warlord's hand moved toward his weapon, but Maya's gentle smile stopped him cold. "Of course, if something were to happen to me, the antidote would be useless. I'm the only one who knows the proper dosage and administration method. Too little, and the spores continue their work. Too much, and well, let's just say the results would be even less pleasant." Prince Snarl's screams had taken on a rhythm now, like a very disturbed form of music. Maya tilted her head, listening with the appreciation of a true artist. "I estimate another 4 hours before the pain becomes genuinely unbearable," she said cheerfully. "Shall we discuss terms?" Warlord Grimjaw had conquered 17 star systems, crushed countless enemies, and built an empire on the bones of those who'd opposed him. But watching his son writhe in chemically induced agony while a smiling human woman offered helpful commentary was a new experience entirely. "What do you want?" he growled, his massive hands clenched into fists. "Oh, I don't want anything," Maya replied, settling into a chair, as if she were attending a pleasant tea party. "I'm just here to facilitate better understanding between our species." Prince Snarl's screams had evolved into something approaching a language, though not a particularly eloquent one. Maya nodded approvingly. "The pain response is working exactly as designed. The spores are targeting the specific neural clusters that process physical sensation. It's really quite elegant." "You're torturing my son," Grimjaw stated, his voice carrying the kind of controlled fury that usually preceded planetary bombardment. "Torture?" Maya looked genuinely surprised. "Oh no, Warlord. This is education. I'm teaching him about the consequences of threatening peaceful species." She pulled out a small notebook and began making observations. "The spores are reproducing at a rate of approximately 12% every 90 seconds. The pain intensity should double within the next hour. I've calibrated it to remain just below the threshold that would cause permanent neural damage." "How considerate," Grimjaw said through gritted teeth. "I thought so," Maya agreed. "You see, I've spent years studying Korthak physiology. Your species processes pain differently than most. What would kill a Vortanian or incapacitate a Terran just makes you really, really uncomfortable. So I had to get creative. Prince Snarl managed to form what might have been words between his screams. They sounded like a request for death, but it was hard to tell. The interesting thing about biological warfare, Maya continued, her voice taking on the tone of a university lecturer, is that it's so much more precise than crude weapons. Bombs are messy. They destroy everything indiscriminately. But the right biological agent? It can target specific species, specific organ systems, even specific individuals. She gestured to a small case she'd brought with her. I've been developing quite a collection. Spores that target Korthak respiratory systems. Bacteria that interfere with Centauran photosynthesis. A lovely little virus that makes Vortanian tentacles fall off. Grimjaw's eyes narrowed. You're threatening the entire galaxy. Threatening? Maya laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. I'm offering friendship. The spores I've used on your son are completely non-lethal. They're designed to teach, not to kill. But if someone were to, say, threaten my ship or my crewmates, I might have to use something less educational. The Warlord looked at his son, then at Maya, then at the small vial in her hand. The calculus was simple: submit to the demands of this tiny, terrifying human, or watch his heir suffer for 6 hours. What are your terms? He asked finally. Maya smiled brightly. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. First, you'll return to your ship and leave our vessel alone. Second, you'll establish a formal trade agreement with the Galactic Council, with terms favorable to peaceful species. Third, you'll spread the word that humans are not to be underestimated. And if I refuse? Maya glanced at Prince Snarl, who was currently attempting to claw his own face off. Then you'll have approximately 5 hours and 43 minutes to find another xenobiologist who understands Korthak neurology better than I do. Good luck with that. The Warlord's shoulders sagged in defeat. Agreed. Man. Wonderful. Maya clapped her hands together. I do so love successful negotiations. Maya administered the antidote with the same gentle care she used for all her botanical work. Prince Snarl's screams faded to whimpers, then to grateful sobs, then to the blessed silence of unconsciousness. She checked his vital signs with professional thoroughness. He'll be fine, she announced to the assembled Korthak delegation. No permanent damage. The spores will clear his system completely within 12 hours. Though I imagine he'll have some very interesting dreams. Warlord Grimjaw cradled his son like a broken doll. You did this to teach him a lesson? I did this to teach all of you a lesson, Maya corrected gently. The galaxy is full of predators and prey. But sometimes the most dangerous predators don't look like what you'd expect. She packed her equipment with practiced efficiency, humming that same gentle melody. The Korthak guards watched her with expressions of pure terror, as if she might suddenly decide to demonstrate another friendship token. Remember our agreement, she said cheerfully as she prepared to leave. Trade negotiations, not tribute demands. And do spread the word about human capabilities. I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings in the future. She paused at the doorway and looked back. Oh, and Warlord? If you ever decide to threaten peaceful species again, I have a lovely little orchid that produces the most fascinating neurotoxins. Just a thought. The journey back to the Harmony was peaceful. The diplomatic staff was waiting with expressions of shock, awe, and healthy fear. Captain Rodriguez looked like he'd aged several years in the past hour. Dr. Patel, he said slowly, what exactly did you do over there? I engaged in cultural exchange, Maya replied, settling back into her botanical laboratory. I think we reached a very productive understanding. Within days, word spread through the galactic networks. The gentle human who'd made a warlord's son scream without raising her voice. The xenobiologist who'd turned biological warfare into a diplomatic tool. The species that had been dismissed as too soft for real conflict had just demonstrated a form of warfare that made conventional weapons look like children's toys. The Galactic Council's attitude toward humanity shifted overnight. Suddenly, human diplomatic missions were granted military escort status. Trade negotiations with human representatives were conducted with unprecedented courtesy. And somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of interstellar governance, a new classification was created: approach with extreme caution. Maya continued her work, tending to her ever-growing collection of specimens. She'd received samples from dozens of worlds, each one carefully cataloged and modified for specific applications. Her greenhouse had become the most secure location on the ship, protected by guards who'd been briefed on exactly what those innocent-looking plants could do. She hummed while she worked, the same gentle melody that had once calmed aggressive specimens. Now it had a different effect on the crew. They found excuses to avoid the botanical section, especially when Maya was in one of her particularly cheerful moods. The truth was, humans had never been too gentle for war. They just found a more elegant way to conduct it. And Maya Patel, xenobiologist and keeper of the galaxy's most dangerous garden, had become humanity's most terrifying ambassador. She smiled as she watered a particularly lovely specimen from the Andromeda sector. The plant purred under her attention, its bioluminescent leaves pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. It was designed to produce compounds that would make Korthak warriors experience uncontrollable euphoria, followed by temporary paralysis. She'd named it Friendship Blossom No. 7. After all, you could never have too many friends in the galaxy.